Today we begin a brand new series called Favor. Just say it with me. Say favor. Favor. Now turn to the person next to you and say, will you do me a favor? Will you do me a favor? And then you can have to tell them later what the favor is, I guess. But now, what is favor? And I was thinking about how to really just kind of start us off today and ask, what is favor? And just kind of get our hands around it. So I thought about a few weeks ago when, after the second service, a few people in our church family went out over to this Moe's restaurant right after church. Just right down the street, real quick, in and out. And so we went in, and you know how kids, especially for church staff families, they're here at 8 o'clock in the morning, they're hanging out, they have a couple of donuts. They go to the first service, in the nursery, maybe second service, maybe sit with a family member, something like that. Then later, the parents help to kind of close up the building, talk to you and everything. So about that time, a 4-year-old little girl, she just maybe not have all that much patience left. And so we love the Valencia family, and little Daniela, of course, we've known her since before she was born and all that kind of good stuff. And so, man, I'm like, once your children get a little bit older, these little bitty babies, they just more exciting, So we were at Moe's, and Daniela was crawling up in my lap, and she was a little bit cranky, but she wanted a cookie. She wanted a cookie. She kept telling everybody, I want a cookie, because, when you go through the line at Moe's, what do they have right there? Cookies. Like when I go through the line, I want a cookie too. So we're going through the line, and she kept saying, I want a cookie, I want a cookie, I want a cookie. And of course, any good parent is not going to say, yes, you can have all this, and go get a cookie too. Because they probably had a lot already all morning. You see, but when you're not the parent, good things happen. And so all I said to Daniela was, and I looked in there at the people in line, at the people who worked at Moe's. Looked at the people who worked at Moe's, and I spied behind the cash register a sweet lady. A sweet lady that was older than 18 years old, working at the fast food restaurant. She looked like she might have had some children, maybe even had some grandchildren. And she was a happy lady, kind of a sweet lady, and I said, Daniela, you really want a cookie? She said, yeah. Will you do exactly what I tell you to do? See that lady right there? Walk from here up to her, look up at her, and say, may I have a cookie, please? I don't have any money. May I have a cookie, please? I don't have any money. And Daniela, that lady will give you a cookie. And Daniela, of course, Graham, my son, hears me, here's my scam. He said, Graham, hold on back, son. Wait a minute, Daddy will get you one later. This is for 4-year-olds. and so Daniela goes up, she looks at the lady and says, may I have a cookie, please? I don't have any money. And I watch, I can't hear what she's saying. I see her mouth moving, and the lady goes, what? And she looks and says, what? And she bends down, and Daniela says it again. And of course, the lady does what? She goes, here you go, you have a cookie. That is a great way to define and illustrate what is favor. Favor is that special thing that happens when you get what you want, when you get to feel special and loved, and when something happens in your life that you really want, that you're grateful for, and you don't know how it happened, and you know you don't deserve it. That's favor. I'll tell you a scripture verse to back up my dumb pastor cookie story. Proverbs 22, verse 1 says, a good name is more desired than great riches. Favor is better than silver and gold. Now, a good name in the scripture, the word name, it doesn't mean like, well, my middle name. See, my middle name is Eugene. I don't know what my parents were thinking. I don't like that name. It's not what I would have chosen. Maybe some of you might have a name that you might not have chosen. I don't want to call. That's not a good name. What's funny is Eugene means like kind of good name. Kind of means that, but it's not a good. I don't like it that much. But I don't think it means that. In the Bible, a good name means a good identity. It means knowing who you are. It means knowing how important you are. It means knowing that if you want a cookie, there is somebody who will give you one, even if you don't have money. A good name is a good identity. Knowing what you deserve. Not settling for things you don't deserve. Being bigger than your situation and bigger than your circumstances. No one can do anything to you that changes how you think about your name and yourself and your identity. A good name is more desired than great riches. Favor is better than silver and gold. Because when God gives you a cookie, even if you could have paid for it, it's better to receive the thing from the hand of God that you didn't pay for because of your identity. That makes sense? It's better to receive the thing from the hand of God that you didn't pay for because you are who you are. You're God's son, you're God's daughter. Because when it happens because of God's favor, it's not about the cookie. It's about the giver. And about you being his favorite. Because the favor always goes to God's favorite. Now you know what you are? You're God's favorite. In a family, sometimes it seems like there's one person who's a favorite. You might have even grown up in a family where it seems like somebody was a favorite. Now, our Father in heaven is so amazing, he is able to have all of his children be his favorite at the same time. Now, me, I've taught classes before, I've been a teacher before, and kids and stuff, and I've got to tell you, I have favorites. I have some that were not my favorites. But God's bigger than me. He's smarter than me. He's a better father than me. He's a better teacher than me. He doesn't get irritated like I do with people. He doesn't play favorites. He gives favorites. He doesn't play favorites, he gives favorites. Now, I want you to practice something. Say this with me. Say, I'm God's favorite.
I'm God's favorite.
Now look at the person next to you. Stick out your long bony finger. Put it in their face. And say, I'm God's favorite. I'm God's favorite. God's favorite. Me and Mike will do it together, okay? I'm God's favorite. Mike's God's favorite. No, you're God's favorite. No, I'm God's favorite. No, you're God's favorite. But favor is better than silver and gold because it's about who you are, not what you have. Oh, that was good. Somebody write that down. That was good. That was extra. That was bonus. Favor is better than silver and gold because it's about who you are, not what you have. Now, what favor isn't? Favor isn't fairness. You know, like they pour in the Kool-Aid in the kitchen when you're a kid. And then like somebody gets more Kool-Aid than you get. That's not fair. That's not fair. See, favor isn't fairness. Favor is better than fairness. Because a good father doesn't compare what he gives to one child to another child, does he? He gives the absolute best for this child. But he will never give this child's best to the next child because he knows that child. A good father gives exactly the best, better, more than enough, amazing, better than what you could have asked for, more than what you wanted to this child. And then he knows what this child needs. Even if this child wants what this other child got. The father doesn't listen to that. Father doesn't come down to our childlike level and say, but I want what he got. Because you get what you get. Because he picked it out for you. Because he knows you. Favor isn't fairness. Favor also isn't happiness. Because we are fickle creatures. We are strange, fickle creatures. We can get one thing one day and be happy, get the same thing the next day and be unhappy. He doesn't lower himself to our fairness. He doesn't lower himself even to our happiness. And the third thing is favor isn't just for you. See, I want it for me. Let's go back to the cookie, okay? You know those birthday party cookies? The really big ones. So if we were to take it to a God scale, it wouldn't be this cookie from the bin by the cash register, right? When it's God's cookie, God comes and he puts the birthday party size cookie into the hands of the 4-year-old little girl. And what should she do with that? She realizes maybe this isn't all just for me. Maybe it isn't just for me. And so it's not fairness, not happiness. It's not just for me. So here's a good definition of the favor of God. The favor of God is the guarantee of his presence and the provision of his power in order to accomplish his divine purpose. See, my divine purpose, if I think about what I want my purpose to be, it's like cookie. But God doesn't want to give me what I want. He wants to give me more than I want. It's the guarantee of his presence and the provision of his power. And at that point, I don't just get what I want. I become responsible for more than I want. I become a powerful, special, purpose-driven, called man or woman of God who walks around with a great big cookie. Enough. I've got enough. Guarantee of his presence. Provision of his power. In 1 Kings 19 through 21, there's this story. And it's the story of Elijah and Elisha. And you got to get these two straight. Elijah comes first, then Elisha. And Elijah had this great victory over Mount Carmel. As a kid, I loved the name Mount Carmel. It just made me excited, like Mount Carmel. But Mount Carmel was an island that stuck out into the Mediterranean Sea. And it just formed a big mountain right on the ocean in Israel. It's a place like that would always be kind of a place of worship. And Elijah was the last prophet willing to fight for the truth and the purposes of God. And all in one day, he took down the altar and the worship of the false god, Baal. And he also slew 400 prophets of Baal and 450 prophets of Asherah. He was totally and completely victorious. But then, he got afraid of the king's wife, Jezebel. There's a whole other sermon in that, but you can imagine why. Just because you're victorious in your purpose doesn't mean that you're secure in your calling all the time. So he ran. And he cried out to God and said, God, I'm the only one left. No one cares. No one cares but me. And God said, oh yeah? I'm calling out. I've got this many left. I've got this many prophets left that you don't even know about. And then he says, and I'm calling you out. And the prophets, the evil people to take over the land, the ones that you don't get rid of, there's a man coming after you named Elisha. Go find him. And he will finish the work. The idea that, yeah, you're right. You can't do it all. The favor of God is bigger than you. Here's Elisha. And Elijah sees this as kind of this idea that he's going to get help that he might not want. But he does it anyway. And he goes in 1 Kings 19-21. It says, so he departed from there, and he found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, while he was plowing with 12 pairs of oxen before him. That's a lot of plowing. 12 pairs of oxen before him. And Elisha himself was at the end with the 12th pair of oxen. He had a lot. And Elijah passed over him and threw his mantle on him. The word mantle is an interesting word because it means a cloak or a coat. But you got to also see it like the lost son, the prodigal son who comes home. And what does the father put on him? A robe. That robe says, you're part of the chosen line. He puts a ring on his finger, and a robe on him, and sandals on his feet. And that mantle, that robe, is a sign of his identity. And so Elijah places on Elisha his robe of identity. Verse 20 says, and he left the oxen, and he ran after Elijah, and he said, please let me kiss my father and mother, and then I will follow you, because he knew what that meant. It meant you were chosen, you've been favored. There's a great big cookie with your name on it. It's more than you can handle. So now you're going to have to leave and go out from these things. And what I like about Elisha is he did not hesitate. He said, okay, just, you mind if I tell mom and dad where I'm going? Elijah, the semi-sarcastic prophet, says, and he said to him, well, go back again, and what have I done to you? So he returned from following him, and he took the pair of oxen, and he sacrificed the oxen as a sacrifice to God. It's the way they worshipped at that time was always within this animal sacrifice before Jesus was the complete and total end of all sacrifices. And so he sacrificed the oxen, and he said he boiled their flesh with the implements of the oxen. That means the plow. Everything that kept the oxen together. And then he gave the meat of all those oxen to all the people around. Meat wasn't something that you just came into accidentally at that time. There always had to be a sacrifice. And so if you had an animal, you had to choose between that animal working for you or that animal being eaten. So he sacrificed that. Those people got meat. And Elisha walked away with no backup plan. Because the favor of God is better than a backup plan. The favor of God is better than great riches. The favor of God is better than silver and gold and oxen and implements of plowing. And see, that was his profession. It was his land. It was his family. It was his identity. What are you, Elisha? I'm a farmer. What do you got? I got a couple 100 acres. What do you grow? I grow enough. I got everything. Where are your parents? Oh, they're right over here. Elisha had his family, his land, his job, his oxen, his strength, his authority, his identity. He could do whatever he needed to do. But when he encountered the choice of God on his life, he walked away. See, God's favor means that you don't always get what you want. But he had everything he wanted, right? God's favor means that you don't always get what you want, you get more. See, I'm asking God for this much, but I don't see the provision because God's trying to give me this much. But God, I don't, that's too much for me to walk around with and carry, God. That's responsibility, that's life, that's calling, that's stewardship. That's taking care of people. God, to whom much is given, Jesus said, much is. But we say, God, give. God, don't require. God, give. God, don't require. God, don't require. The favor of God is always to whom much is given, much is required. Ephesians 3:20 says it this way. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that we can ask or think. Sometimes when we're seeking God, we don't see the answer because God doesn't know how to answer as small as we ask. He is unable to answer my small request. God's comfort and his love and his blessing and his future and his resources are bigger than helping get me through the day. Because he wants to give you something that's not fair. He wants to give you something bigger than happiness. He wants to give you something that's more than just for you. He's able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that you could ask or even think of. The favor of God exists in the realm that you don't even know how to ask for that. And you might not want it when it's presented to you. Because the cookie looks too big. It's according to the power that works within us. There's a quote by C.S. Lewis that I really like here. C.S. Lewis says this: "We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us. We're like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased." Ask yourself that question: God, am I far too easily pleased? Am I far too easily pleased? You might be. See, when God doesn't give you what you want, it's because he plans to give you more than you want. Some of us in 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 years saying, but why hasn't God given me? Where's the favor of God? And we typically want restoration of something we had in the past. That's too small for you. That's not enough for the calling of God in your life. Oh, that's plenty for you to be the person you used to be. But God's not in the business of turning you into the person you used to be. He's in the business of you becoming the person that he knows you can be. And bigger cookies require bigger hands. And they require help from other people. And they require giving something away. When God doesn't give you what you want, it's because he plans to give you more than you want. There's a little girl with her little stuffed animal. And there's Jesus with the great big cookie. And she's holding on to the little tiny one. And she says, but God, I love it. But God, I love it. God, I love it. And Jesus knows that she can't hold the old one and the great big new one at the same time. And Brittany and Ashley couldn't hold on to things here and what God wanted to bless them with. Elisha couldn't hold on to his oxen and his land and his parents and his job and his identity when God gave him a new mantle, a new identity, and a new job, and a new future. Right? Later, the latest thing that happens in the story is later in the book of 2 Kings. It takes a whole new book of the Bible in 2 Kings. And I'll just tell you that when Elijah was finishing and going on to heaven, he went up. He didn't die. He never died. One of the people in the scripture, he never died. And he went up in a whirlwind and a chariot of fire. That's where you get the whole term that you've heard, like the movie and all that kind of stuff, chariots of fire. It comes from 2 Kings 2. And he says, when they had crossed over, Elijah says to Elijah, ask what I shall do for you before I'm taken from you. And so today, you're the little girl with the, sorry guys, you're the little girl with the little stuffed animal. And here's Jesus, and he's saying, ask what I should do for you. Ask what I should do for you. And Elisha has the presence of mind to say, if I'm going to walk in your footsteps, Elijah, can I please have double the power in my life that God gave you in your life? And that's what every parent wants for a child, right? I want you to have double. We sometimes want them to have double the money or double the houses or double the physical things. But God knew better. And Elisha knew better. And we need to know better. I want double the portion of your spirit, God. I want double the presence of God. I want more. You know, in the scripture, when you look, if you counted them, through Elisha's life, double the miracles happened for the people of God. In Elijah's life, double. So Elijah said to Elisha, you can have it, but it's going to take you seeing something you've never seen before that no one can see. It's going to take you chasing me down, never leaving my side, and if you actually see with your eyes a man that didn't die, and go up in my chariot of fire. If you see it with your eyes, I know you'll believe double. He says, as he went up in the chariot of fire, Elijah threw down to Elisha that cloak, that mantle. And he carried it for the rest of his days. It's better to have the favor of God than riches. A good name is more desirable than riches. The favor of God is more than silver and gold. So what is it in your life right now that you've got a hold of, and you don't see anything in Jesus' hand, but he's asking, will you trust me? Will you trust me? Will you trust me? Let's stand together.